Hello, 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 hello. It's Sean Brady here with another fabulous podcast of The Sean Brady Show. Except I'm not interviewing anybody. I'm being interviewed by Cynthia Correll.
We decided to turn the tables.
The tables have been turned.
I think it's about time that we learned more about you, Sean.
Oh my gosh, it's my Virgin tour. You were the first person to interview me on my podcast.
And you're the first person I ever did a podcast with.
See?
So
I love it.
We're
there
bonded.
are no accidents.
We're bonded, yes.
Forever, this is a moment in history, and it's being recorded. So
That's great. So tell us how you got the idea for doing the podcast. You are such a natural at doing this. I thought I would be really nervous. You made me feel really comfortable. It was a great conversation. So tell us how you got started. What gave you the idea? How did you get started?
Well, first, thank you. I'm blushing a little here. So I got started really in sales, right? And I knew even going into college, I went to junior college and then college, and part of my jobs were I sold big screen TVs. Back when big screen TVs were 35-inch tube TVs that cost $3,000 to $4,000 depending on the case.
Oh, wow.
And so I did that outside of high school, and that helped pay for my finishing up my 4-year degree. But I knew from junior college, I'm like going, because I couldn't get into college on my grades. I probably had undiagnosed ADD. I was a solid C student.
Well, I want you to know Einstein was a terrible student.
I like
so
that.
You're
I like that company.
In good company.
I'm in good company with Einstein. I like it. But I did know. What I loved about going to junior college first was I figured out. I thought I wanted to go into just a business degree, and what I didn't know about a business degree is that I had to have a B+ average or better in these 9 core classes, and I got a C in one of them. And I didn't even know I needed it. Otherwise I would have retaken the class. But by that time, I'm like going, oh, well, registration ends this week. I can't go back and take another class. And I already had money down for my apartment or dorm and all this other stuff. And I'm like, okay, what do I do? So I switched degrees a little bit and went into organizational corporate communications. And I realized that, it's close to a business degree. And I really just want to get my degree and get out of school because then I'm going to go work. And they're going to have all these awesome training programs. And I'm going into sales anyway because that's what I've been doing. I'm being successful so far. So it really started with selling. And then I became, I worked for a Fortune 150 company and I sold stuff all over the place. And I sold technology services. And
So what do you like about selling?
What I love about selling is I get to be with people and I get to help them a little bit with their solutions and say, hey, look, here's why my solution works for you right now, and you can always change it later, but this really works for your business. And it's cool. And I love being in front of people and love that whole interaction. But if you look at, I've done a lot of work on this. If you look at my personality type, thanks Art Snarzik and many others, but if you look at my personality type, I will take things up to a certain point, and then it really has to be fulfilled and implemented by the technicians of the world. The people who are going to put all those things up. That's not my expertise. My expertise is bringing people to the table and having people sign on a proverbial dotted line and going from there. So I call that sales enablement.
Oh, interesting.
So I branded it with David Berger, sales enablement, selling strategy. And it's even less about the strategy. It's more about enablement. And the thing it's like, how do you stay top of mind for your database, your network, your customers and clients?
Right.
How do you stay top of mind in a way that becomes effortless and is fun for you? And that's when I started. I did my first podcast probably 8 years ago. And
wow.
I know,
You were ahead of your time, weren't you?
Probably, yeah. I recorded it at home. And I was a realtor at the time, and I recorded it for my neighborhood. I'm like, okay, what if I did this and did that? And that started it off. And then following up fast forward, now I'm in St. Louis, and I found Medici Media Space, and I met Jade Horrell, right? And she's for those that don't know Jade, I can't believe you don't know Jade, but she's been a fabulous co-host on the Model Health Show podcast and a developer of many other podcasts across the nation, right?
Okay.
So #1 podcast in his category. And I realized, I'm like, well, what are the things I want to talk about? Because that was one of the questions she posed to me. I'm like, well, I love business, and I love what other things I love self-improvement, I love motivation, I love being inspired, I love constantly learning and constantly developing new relationships and making people happy.
That's one of the things I noticed about us doing a podcast together when you were interviewing me, is that I really felt that genuine interest of yours in learning, and you're a good listener, and I think, impression of you when I first met you, you have this bigger than life personality, right?
Thank you.
Which is just so wonderful. I mean, you make it so much fun, but underneath that, I really sense this genuineness, and this keen perception of, solving problems and helping businesses and helping entrepreneurs and holding the vision for them to be successful.
Yeah.
Right?
It's, there's that movie Jerry Maguire, some of us watched out there.
Yes.
Well, he's got his old mentor, the little guy who first helped him in the business. And I remember one of his lines is, if you want to sell anybody, you gotta love everybody. And that was one thing that I always
like that.
That's always stuck with me.
Yeah.
And even when I got in situations where I'm like, wow, I don't love what I'm selling. I don't like how I'm doing this. And that was my litmus test. I'm like, oh, I shouldn't be doing that anymore. And it's like, okay, until I really have that passion and that natural enthusiasm.
Yes.
Enthusiasm, take the last 4 letters of enthusiasm. I learned this too a long time ago, which is IASM.
Okay.
It becomes an acronym. I am sold myself. And then you have natural enthusiasm. And if you don't have that, it's really, really hard.
Yes.
So that's what I love to do, seriously, on this podcast and other mediums, is how do I make... I think it was Vanessa and Nick, shout out to you. They talk about being local famous, right?
Okay.
And I think of that as, how do you do that in your sphere or your network and your database?
Yes.
And it could be a database of LinkedIn, the people in your email list.
Yes.
How do you stay top of mind for them? And you get that kind of local famous for them, but that you're just top of mind.
Well, and what I love about this is that the only preparation we did was, which I thought was so fabulous too, the preparation was so easy. You said, think about 3 things that are pet peeves,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
And it really helped me to just make that quick list, and I didn't have to do a script. There was no rehearsal.
No.
It was so spontaneous. Isn't that wonderful?
Well,
just the spontaneity.
Thank you. And I try to incorporate and make things easy. That's how I've always sold. It's like I try to bring it back to what's the simplest thing, because people don't want all that. You talked about it, about communication architecture.
Yes.
And it's like people don't want to look at all that stuff. Some people do. Some people really geek out about knowing the fine little details.
True.
Right?
There's some.
And I've been known to do that too. And I didn't think I would, but I did.
Uh-huh.
And what I found was, it's like, how can I get 80% of what you're saying in a soundbite or a couple bullet points that is so it communicates, but then they're getting the real you.
I think I'm going to call you my communication architect deputy.
All right, I like it. I'm a communication architect deputy.
I like that. I like
wow.
that. So
Dr. Bonagero would be so proud. Dr. Doderland, thank you. You'd be so proud.
Awesome.
Dr. Larson, you'd be so proud. All my communications instructors.
So what I want to communicate to the audience is really how easy this is. And many of us think about doing a video or a podcast that it's so much work, right? The preparation.
It's a lot of work. And, if you look at Jade and there's all these sound engineers and things like that. So, I was a realtor for a while. I was in real estate for as a broker, licensee, as a real estate agent or a broker for 13 years. But what I took away from that was I just didn't like things too perfect. And I wanted things that were real. I didn't want organic. But it was so. What I always cringe at is, and one of the reasons we bought the house that we bought was the pictures were terrible. It was staged not well, and it had like furniture from your grandma to some modern stuff that was over here, and then they just it just didn't show well. Like the pictures were grainy, they weren't like crisp and things. But I actually liked that because I'm like going, oh, well, I bet I could fix this, or I bet I could improve it and make it prettier. Versus all the things where it's like, oh, it's done up perfect, like the perfect face and stuff like that with makeup and things like that. And then you get there, it's like, wow, those pictures. You walk in, and it's such a letdown because it's like, this isn't like the picture.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm like, this isn't even close. I thought I was walking into a 9 out of 10, and it's like, this is like a 6. It's like, this is smaller than I thought. It's not as clean. I can see the dirt now.
That's a bummer.
Right, and I hated that. Wow. So that was one thing I try to do. Is that's why all my podcasts I don't edit them.
Well, let's be clear though, because even though we have some youngsters in our audience here today.
We're at the Wolf.
Oh, yes. We have to tell you, this is just the most fabulous place in Baldwin.
Awesome. Right on Clayton Road.
We love coming here. So, Sean, what I want to communicate is that even though it's an easy process for someone like me being interviewed.
Yes.
I mean, what makes it easy is that you have the experience of doing this. You have the technical know-how that makes it simple. I mean, it was simple to set up, and you did the sound testing and all of that.
Thank you.
Let's not minimize that side of it that you bring now.
Thinking my upper limit, my upper barriers right now. We talked about this book yesterday at Mastermind St. Louis, The Big Leap, and they talk about their upper limits, and it's like, oh, what abundance or love can you not accept? And you have to, it's like, oh, it's kind of tough to accept the compliment, so thank you. I'm like breaking through something here.
Good. Well, you're doing it well. So, just to wrap up, let's talk about if someone listening would like to do a podcast with you, how would they contact you, or how would you recommend they?
The best way is it's always via text, and I put that on all the bottom of my podcasts. I have a local area code, 636-789, the number 1, and if you like acronyms, it's one fun.
Oh, why am I not surprised?
Right? So there's always a subliminal thing, even if I know people don't have the phones the way they used to. But so one fun translates to 636-789-1386. 1386.
Very good. Well, I think that you have your tagline then. Podcasts can be fun.
They are. And especially when you do it with Sean Brady.
Exactly. That's the key ingredient.
Not only, the other mantra I come from is, I'll make you famous. I'll make you famous not just with your peeps and whatnot and your database, but that's my intention. Because you're the expert. It's like everybody's been doing their stuff focused for a really long time. There's like very few amateurs that I talk to, and when I can help them, their audience, get how big of an expert they are. Of course they're going to stay top of mind, and that's what I love to do.
Well, you do it well, Sean.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Keep doing it.
I will. Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'll finish off this podcast with thank you for listening, and for everybody out in social media land, we'll see you on social media. You can take over this and everything.
No. It wouldn't be for me, but that was, my way of giving you something back. So thank you.
I appreciate it.